At the last podcast recording, we went over the principle and the rationale behind conversation outlines, conversation frameworks, conversation scripts, conversation prompts, conversation agendas, whatever it is that you would like to call it. So we just had a look at the meat of why it's important to have these ready frameworks handy, either on your phone, on a sheet of paper, or in your skull, because it makes communication a lot easier and a lot more effective. Also, because it reduces the mental effort and the cognitive load that comes with every single conversation. Because if you didn't have simple prompts and simple frameworks that you can rely on, every single time you're with a new bride, or you're at a new networking session, or you're in a new business conversation, you'll be racking your brains about what it is that you have to say. So there's a lot of mental effort and fatigue if you're going to have to freestyle all the time. And most importantly, the main reason why having these frameworks or these operating procedures or these scripts or whatever it is you want to call them, the main reason why we need them is because they help you to scale your business. And the idea behind scaling is that you take something that works and you multiply it by several factors. So you take one thing that works, you teach your 10 employees, they do that, and you guys get multiples in terms of results rather than you just doing everything by yourself. So if you're freestyling, you can't just tell people go forth and freestyle and expect your business to grow. But if you have a framework, you can teach them, and you're going to be able to pass on your creative genius and your flair and all that wonderful stuff that you have cooked up to make your business grow. So those are the reasons why it's important for us to have conversation outlines or conversation formats, just to keep you focused on what it is that is most important. Now, if you listened to the last episode, you'd remember that I said my treatment of this topic, as conversation outlines, is not going to be a systematic one. So I'm not a communications professional. I didn't study mass communications in school, and I didn't read any of the communications disciplines. So this is just going to be a systematic and kind of ad hoc approach that I'm taking to it, because I'm relying on my personal experience, things that I have found that work for me, that I've learned from other people, and especially from other material that I have come across. So you're going to hear a couple of names that you've already heard before on this podcast, like Ziegler, Tracy, Cardone, Hopkins, who else? Rackham, and on and on. So you're going to hear the usual names. Now, I go through the trouble of making sure I put these names out there because a lot of these guys that I called are the mostly the older ones. And so, they did business back in the day when people weren't too proprietary over their information. So you can find a lot of material out there. If you use the Google machine and you search, you'll find a lot of stuff about Ziegler and Tracy and Cardone and all these people that I make reference to. So you don't necessarily have to buy the books right now, because there's lots of free information out there. So let's get on to the conversation outlines and the frameworks that I would like to share for when you're involved in a sales conversation, you're chatting with your bride, with your groom, or you're in another event kind of scenario and you're chatting with your prospective client, or when you're at that networking session because the Abuja wedding planners have called an association meeting, or maybe the Lagos Wedding Photographers Association has called a networking meeting, or the Benue State Cake Bakers Association has called a meeting. Well, just in case you're wondering if these organizations actually exist, in principle they do. Those are not the names, but I've heard about those organizations in Benue, in Abuja, and in Lagos. So don't be surprised if any of these associations come to a town near you soon, because we're all trying to raise the level of the game and increase our level of professionalism. Okay, so now the first conversation framework, I think, is pretty much the first one that I was introduced to, and it's something that we all have been introduced to in primary school, especially for those of us who had primary school in the public education system in Nigeria. We're all taught about the 5 Ys. I can't remember if it was the 5 Ys or 6 Ys, or is it 7 Ys? Sorry, not Ys, Ws. So the 5 Ws or the 7 Ws, I can't remember how many Ws there are, but I'll list out the W's, and if you remember any of them, that you were taught back in primary school, remember that they apply to this situation. So the W's are who, what, why, where, when, and how. I think Ziegler throws in how, even though how is technically speaking not a W, because, well, it's an open-ended question, and it helps to drive the conversation forward. Now, what you notice about this framework for now is that it's a question-led framework, and it is an open question-led framework. So the idea behind this is if you ask people closed questions that they have to answer yes or no, the conversation is not going to go much forward. So if you are at the networking session and you walk to somebody and you say, oh, you're a wedding photographer, right? The person will say yes, or the person will say no. Now, there's not much room to move forward from there. Well, there is room, but the thing is, it gives you the added pressure of thinking what next to follow up with. But if you walk up to the person and say, oh, good morning, Mr. James. I heard someone refer to you as James. Why are you here? Why did you show up for the session today? The person can start talking about the fact that he's a wedding photographer or he's a wedding planner and what he hopes to get out of this. It gets the conversation going, and so from there, you're going to be able to ask a couple of more questions in the same vein: who, what, why, where, how, and when, to get the conversation flowing. Now, the good thing about questioning-based frameworks is that they make people feel like you're a good conversationalist, because everybody likes talking about themselves, me included. And so if you're having a conversation with me and you're using all these kinds of questions and you're getting me to talk about my favorite subject, which is myself, and don't fool yourself, your favorite subject to talk about is yourself as well, for most people. Truly altruistic people are rare, so chances are you like talking about yourself as well. So when you're in a conversation with someone and they give you an open space to express yourself and to talk freely about what it is you know and what's dear to you and things like that, we come away from the conversation feeling that the person is a very good conversationalist. And I get that a lot because I try to lead conversations with questions. And so people say I'm a good conversationalist when really I haven't said much about myself. All I've done is ask questions and listen. And from listening, I know where else to prod and where else to ask more questions. So that's the general idea behind the 5 W's or the 7 W's or how many W's there are. So it's who, what, why, where, how, when, and any other W that you can think of. So you've seen how it applies in the networking session. Like, oh, so you're a wedding photographer. When did you get involved in wedding photography? How did you go about that? Where did you first start your photography business? Why did you choose to go into photography in the first place? What does wedding planning involve? Who are your ideal clients? When it comes to wedding planning. You see, these are lots of questions you can ask in networking sessions that help you get a sense of who it is that you're talking to. You get a sense of the person's personality, their business acumen, their business philosophy, and you come away with a sense of whether this kind of person would be a good vendor to have on your roster so that you can refer clients to, and hopefully so that you guys can drum up business together. So, yeah, that's it. The W's framework. Now, how this applies to when you're having conversations with prospective clients is roughly the same. So somebody comes up to your stand, and if you just have simple questions, yes or no questions, like, closed-ended questions like, oh, so you're the bride, the answer is either yes or no. And then you have to think of what else to say. But if you use open-ended questions, it's a lot easier to drive the conversation forward. Okay, like for instance, let's say 3 of them show up and you say, who's the bride? Now, that is not, it's still kind of closed in a sense, but at least the bride doesn't just say yes or no. So who is the bride? Oh, I am. Oh, congratulations. When did he propose? Where is the wedding? What are the colors? Why this? Why this idea? Why that idea? Assuming that you're the wedding planner. So you see how the W questions also apply for when you are speaking to brides and grooms. So if you're a photographer, you're a cake artist, this is a pretty simple script that you can follow a lot of the time that saves you the hassle about what to say when you're at a wedding fair or when you show up to the bride's mom's house and you guys are having discussions about cake design and wedding planning and photography and all of that. So the W's, the 5 W's, I really should count them. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, let's just say it's 5 W's because I have 5 here. I can't remember if there are any more. If any of you gentle listeners find out any more W's, please let me know. Shoot me a message, usual channels, so that in future episodes I can add that here. But for now, let me just stick to 5 W's. I'm not sure where I saw 7. Anyway, so the 5 W's, really handy tool. You don't have to have this on your phone because it is easy to remember because we were taught these in primary school. So, handy conversation outline that you can use very easily the next time you're at a networking session or having conversations with a client. Now, since we have 2 or 3 other ones that I would like to explore, and we've hit the 10-minute mark, I will wrap it up right here, and we'll get on that at the next recording. So, thank you very much, guys, for listening to the Sales for the Nigerian Wedding Industry podcast. I'm your host, Abuja-based event and wedding photographer Tavishima Ayede. Thank you very much for your time and attention. I'll catch you guys at the next recording.